welcome to No, I Will Not Stop Talking About the Halloween franchise. Today I'm going to go through a choose your own adventure, so I'm focusing on the timeline. If you want to get a broader, conversation regarding the Halloween franchise, I have a very long feature-length film podcast on it, which should be linked above in one of these corners if you're interested in that sort of thing. Okay, Halloween, the Choose Your Own Adventure franchise. On a side note, Choose Your Own Adventure books should make a comeback. I love Goosebumps. Anyway, this film franchise has 13 entries as of me making this, and basically either soft or hard reboots every decade or so. The original Halloween came out in 1978. It got a sequel in 1981, and the third entry, the anthology entry, which has nothing to do with the rest of the franchise, came out in 1982, which didn't really work. So, reboot! Bring Michael Myers back. One might go so far as to say, he returns. In 1988, that film got a sequel, Revenge, in 1989, and that film got a sequel, Curse, in 1995. And nope, the cult thing didn't work. Okay. We'll go back to the original sequel and make another third film, H2O, which came out in 1998, and that film got a sequel in 2002. Not much can be done or said about Resurrection. Guess they should have called it Extinction, so moving on. Rob Zombie remakes the original film in 2007, and unlike every other major horror franchise, his remake actually got a sequel in 2009. The sequel didn't go over very well, so, alright, wait. Just wait. Blumhouse bought the rights, and they're going to go and hard reboot all the way back to the original 1978 film with Halloween 2018. This film, for their money, got a trilogy. The first sequel, Kills, came out in 2021, and the end, if you will, was released in 2022. So the original film came out in 1978, and its reboots came out in subsequent years, 1988, 1998, 2007, and 2018. So I'll see you in 2028. All right, so let's kind of untangle the timeline. I'm going to remove Chapter 3, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, aka the anthology entry, as it really has nothing to do with the rest of the films. With that said, Halloween, the original, opens in 1963 with 6-year-old Michael Myers murdering his 15-year-old sister, Judith Myers, after which Michael is institutionalized in Smith Grove Sanitarium under the care of good Dr. Sam Loomis. He sits and waits for 15 years, not seeing a wall, but seeing through the wall. October 30th to 31st, 1978, Michael escapes from Smith's Grove Sanitarium to return home to Haddonfield, Illinois, where he goes on a killing spree, focusing on the Wallace and Doyle households after spotting 17-year-old Laurie Strode dropping off a key for her realtor father at the old abandoned Myers house where he's been hiding out. To save Laurie from being strangled by Michael, Dr. Loomis shoots him, and Michael falls out of a second-story window and gets away. As you do, unharmed. Bullets? Not today. This concludes John Carpenter's 1978 Halloween. Now from here, we have two sequel options. We can continue the same night with Halloween 2, or we can bounce to 40 years later to Halloween 2018. For the sake of our linear understanding of time, let's just continue on with the original Halloween 2. It was released in 1981, but picks up the same night of October 31st, 1978 in Haddonfield, Illinois. Dr. Loomis is still out looking for Michael, and he is continuing on his killing spree to the Haddonfield Memorial Hospital where Laurie has been taken. So Michael kills more people, as you do. Laurie once again escapes his clutches, and Dr. Loomis once again shoots Michael and then blows them both up. Don't worry, they both live, cause can't kill off characters. It's a simple slasher plot, great kills, Lance Guest is in it, but not really much to say. November 1st arrives and our girl Laurie lives. Yay! From here, we can go with Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, with little Jamie Lloyd, the daughter of Laurie who was killed off screen, or we can skip over to H2O with Laurie and her son John 20 years later. Again, for the sake of our temporal existence, we'll just move on to the Thorn trilogy, which is comprised of Halloween 4, 5, and 6, or Returns, Revenge, Curse, and spans from 1988 until 1995, where it abruptly ends. So, Chapter 4, The Return of Michael Myers. The third chapter in this series takes place in 1988. We are now following 8-year-old Jamie Lloyd, the orphaned daughter of Laurie Strode, who died November-ish of 1987, I think. Math. She's been adopted by Richard and Darlene Carruthers, who already have a 17-year-old daughter, Rachel. Michael has been in a coma and institutionalized in Ridgemont Federal Sanitarium for the past 10 years. He's being transferred back to Smith's Grove Sanitarium when a paramedic mentions that he has a living niece, Jamie. Michael abruptly wakes up and wreaks havoc on the ambulance, killing all of the ambulance paramedic people. I'm sure there's a better name for this than what I'm doing right now. Michael returns to Haddonfield to find Jamie and kill some townsfolk, with Dr. Loomis right on his heels, as always. Rachel is babysitting Jamie while Michael kills a bunch of people in town, and some townsfolk form a mob and try to find him and accidentally find Ted Hollister instead. Rest in peace, Ted Hollister. They do end up saving Jamie and Rachel, and then a bunch of them get killed off, and then the Haddonfield police and some state troopers arrive and start shooting Michael. I think he got run over at one point. I think they threw grenades at him at one point. It gets crazy, and yet still, he escapes. He rolls down a hill, injured, and down into a stream where he just floats downstream to the next movie. The film ends with Jamie stabbing her stepmother, Darlene Carruthers, in a clown costume, and Dr. Loomis screaming, "No! No!" Because the cycle of evil continues. Continuing on with the Thorn trilogy, we get Chapter 5, Revenge of Michael Myers, which was released and takes place a year after Returns in 1998. So, just kidding, the cycle of evil does not continue. Retcon! Jamie's a patient at Haddonfield Children's Clinic. She's nonverbal, traumatized, and now has a psychic link to her uncle Michael, who wakes up on Halloween after being comatose for a year in like a shaft or cave or something, being looked after by a homeless man. Sense? Who? Not here. We don't know her. Dr. Loomis is one of Jamie's doctor, which is totally ethical. And, he's very concerned and engaged mental health professional. No, he's totally unhinged and kind of abusing this poor little 9-year-old girl. It's actually sad. Michael begins killing off more of the Haddonfield populace, while Jamie is kind of like mentally witnessing some of it. I guess. Michael even kills Jamie's stepsister Rachel and another dog, Max. He kills a lot of dogs. It's a problem. Dr. Loomis uses Jamie to lure Michael home to the Myers house, where after further traumatizing poor little Jamie, he traps Michael and tries to kill him, but then he has a stroke. And then the police tranquilize and arrest him and take him back, still masked, by the way, to the Haddonfield police station, where a mysterious man that we've been seeing wandering around Haddonfield in a black trench coat shows up and opens fire, and the man in black kills like a bunch of Haddonfield deputies and Sheriff Meeker, and then he releases Michael and takes him and Jamie right into the next movie. As you do. So, Chapter 6, Curse of Michael Myers, was released and takes place in 1995, 6 years after Revenge. And this chapter does have revisions in the second edition. So, basically what happens, looking at both the theatrical and the producer's cut, this chapter opens in October of 1995, where 15-year-old Jamie Lloyd is trying to escape from the Smith's Grove underground with her newborn son Stephen, who might also be the son of Jamie's uncle Michael. Okay, moving on. Michael and Jamie have been held for the past 6 years in the Smith's Grove Sanitarium underneath in tunnels and shit, I guess, by a cult known as the Cult of the Thorn, led by Dr. Loomis's boss, the man in black himself, Dr. Terrence Wynn. sense. Does not live here. Nope. So Halloween, 1995. Michael is once again on the loose in Haddonfield with Dr. Loomis right on after him. I feel like we're going in circles. Okay, so once again, Michael is going back to the Myers house. Like, he just wants to go home. But someone's living there. The Strode family. Brother to Lori's adoptive father, Morgan. John and Deborah with their son, Tim, daughter Kara, and her son, Danny. Tommy Doyle, the little boy from the first film, is living across the street from the Myers house. And this makes sense. He's like 25 now and kind of paranoid, waiting for Michael to come home. And this paranoia paid off. Sort of. He didn't save like John or Deborah or Tim or his girlfriend Beth from Michael, but he did save Steven, Kara, and Danny, so there's that, I guess. The end of the film sees the Thorn cult, Tommy, Kara, Steven, Loomis, and Michael all at Smith's Grove Sanitarium for a showdown. The cult is trying to make Danny the new Michael by transferring the mark of the thorn to him. I think I've seen this movie so many times, and I'm not sure if that is the plot of the movie. Anyway, depending on which version you watch, Tommy, Kara, Danny, and Steven all get away, never to be seen again. Dr. Loomis either takes over Dr. Wynn's role as the leader of the cult, or he's killed. And then something mysterious happens to Michael. We'll never know, because this is where this timeline ends. Please return to Chapter 2 for the Laurie sequels. So, rereading Chapter 2, alright, we did that. Now where do we go? Where do we go from here? After Halloween 2, we can jump to 20 years later to continue the Laurie story, which I didn't rhyme, in H2O in 1998. So Chapter 7, H2O, a now 37-year-old Laurie is going by Carrie Tate, the head mistress of a boarding school in Hillcrest Academy in Northern California. She lives with her 17-year-old son, John Tate, and is doing the best to raise him, date the school counselor, and teach, all while coping with her trauma and her nightmares and her mild alcoholism. She's, taking the world by the hands. On October 29th, 1998, Michael randomly breaks into Dr. Loomis's old house, I guess, that he left to nurse Marion Chambers after he passed. Maybe? After killing her and some teenagers, he takes off for Laurie's son, John, I think. He arrives at the school on Halloween and kills some of John's friends. Laurie sends John and his girlfriend Molly off, and they drive away out of the franchise. Bye. She remains to confront her fate, her monster, her brother, Michael. They have an epic battle, which ends with her stealing an ambulance with him in the back and purposely crashing it, then decapitating him. What a great ending. But if you like, you can continue and see what would happen if this storyline did continue. But I gotta warn you against it. So Chapter 8, Resurrection, picks up 2 years after H2O in 2001. Michael shows up at Grace Anderson Sanatorium in California, where Laurie is a patient. So retcon time, Laurie didn't decapitate Michael in 1998. She took off the head of a paramedic that Michael put his mask on, because Michael might actually be the most ultimate mastermind. That foresight powers is ridiculous. Either way, Laurie sets up a trap for him, but winds up dying herself, and Michael finally killed Laurie October 31st, 2001. She was about 39 years old. Alright. So, what was he doing from 1998 to 2001? And what was he doing from 1978 to 1998? This timeline has zero details. Anyway, what we do know is after Michael killed Laurie, he returns home to the Myers house in Haddonfield, Illinois. So next year, Halloween, 2002, Busta Rhymes, I will not look up his character name, decides to film a reality show in the Myers house. The premise, a bunch of college kids will spend the night, Halloween night, in the Myers house. Because yay, exploitation! Michael kills a bunch of people who broke into his home. Just leave the guy alone. Busta Rhymes kicks Michaels into some electrical cords and electrocutes him and then says, "Trick or treat, motherfucker." And thus ends this timeline, because where do you go from there? Please return to Chapter 1 for the Blumhouse trilogy. Chapter 9, Halloween 2018, which goes all the way back to the original Night He Came Home, Halloween 1978, and ignores everything else. It picks up 40 years after that night in 2018, which I've said like 6 times now, with a heavily traumatized 57-year-old Laurie Strode who has a strained relationship with her daughter Karen and wants to connect with her granddaughter Allison. Meanwhile, so some evil podcasters, Aaron and Dana, go to Smith's Grove Sanitarium and show the now 61-year-old Michael Myers his mask for reasons, and to talk to his doctor Sartain. Exploitation. Alright. Michael escapes from prison transport with Dr. Sartain's help, because apparently he's evil, I guess. This all sounds so familiar. Either way, it's Halloween and Michael Myers is on the loose, killing townsfolk in Haddonfield once again after 40 years. Once again after 15 years. Anyway, through a very contrived plot, Michael and Laurie face off again, but with less familial baggage. And they do some damage to each other, and in the end, Laurie sets her house on fire with Michael trapped inside the basement, and then she and her daughter and her granddaughter all flee to the hospital to get the medical attention because she's been like disemboweled or something, I don't know. To find out what happens, turn to Chapter 10. Chapter 10. Halloween Kills was released in 2021 and picks up the same night of Halloween 2018. Laurie spends the duration of this entry in the hospital. And don't worry, you have not accidentally flipped back to Chapter 2. This franchise is just a little repetitive. Her daughter Karen is freaking out after learning that Michael is still alive and thinks that he's after her mother or something. I don't really know. She doesn't really seem to care that her husband was murdered in the previous entry, but like whatever, who cares? Husbands, overrated, am I right? And then Allison goes off to hunt Michael, who breaks out of the inferno that is Laurie's house and just kills so many people. Just like so many people. Some of the Haddonfield's town folk come together to form a mob. Again, don't worry, you haven't accidentally flipped back to Chapter 4 Returns. It's just very repetitive. Some of the mob include Lonnie and Cameron Elam, Tommy Doyle, Lindsay Wallace, and Nurse Marion Chambers, most of whom are from the first film. Cameron, of course, being from the previous Halloween film. And there's some other people from the previous film. It's not really important. They all die. I mean, Lindsay lived. Everybody else dies. Michael even killed Laurie's daughter, Karen. In the end, Allison, Laurie, Michael, and Deputy Frank Hawkins and Lindsay all survive. The film kind of turns its wheels. Anyway, Chapter 11. Find out how it ends. Chapter 11. Halloween Ends. I doubt it ends, but that's, what it's called. Ends was released and primarily takes place in 2022. It does open 1 year after Kills in 2019, where we meet Corey Cunningham, who is babysitting Jeremy Allen. Unfortunately, through a series of wild and unfortunate events, Jeremy has an accident and dies, and the town of Haddonfield blames and ostracizes Corey. The town's really very paranoid and traumatized by Michael, which I get, but also, Anyway, 3 years later, 2022, 4 years after Michael murdered Laurie's daughter, she has moved into a new house and is playing like perfect 50s cookie cutter mom to her orphaned granddaughter Allison, who is now a nurse. She got that degree fast. Way to go, her. Michael's been living in a sewer. And no one's found him in 4 years in a small town. Right, okay, so he's living in a sewer and is very weak. Some Haddonfield High marching band kids have been bullying marching band? Alright, so they've been bullying Corey. Through this, like, aggression, Corey comes to meet Lori, who introduces him to Allison, and they start dating. They start dating. The marching band kids throw Corey off of a bridge, which leads him to meet Michael and make eye contact with him, which does something. I don't know what, but something. Logic has really left this visual medium. Anyway, Michael shows Corey how to kill and then helps him kill. And then Corey steals his mask and starts killing on his own. And then he kills himself. And then Michael comes back for his mask. And then he and Lori face off. And then Lori and Allison kill him. So that's what happened, I guess. Yeah. Lori and Hawkins get a cute romantic moment. Don't Fear the Reaper plays, and thus endeth this timeline. If you would like to continue, go to chapter 12 to restart the book. Chapter 12, Rob Zombie's remake, Halloween 2007. The remake of Halloween opens in 1990 with 10-year-old Michael Myers and his Rob Zombie-esque family, mom Deborah, her boyfriend Ronnie, and his sisters Judith, who's 16, and Angel, who's a baby. And then Michael's got a lot of problems. Everything boils over on Halloween, and he kills his sister's boyfriend, his mom's boyfriend, and his bully. After this, he is institutionalized at Smith Grove Sanitarium under the care of Dr. Loomis, and their relationship is really kind of explained and expanded upon, as well as the mistreatment of patients at Smith's Grove Sanitarium. 2 years later, 1992, Deborah takes her own life, and then Sheriff Lee Brackett takes 2-year-old Angel and puts her up for a closed adoption to ensure that she gets a reasonable chance at life, and she's adopted by the Strode family. 15 years later, Michael's been institutionalized now for 17 years. The giant 27-year-old man breaks out on Halloween to go home to Haddonfield and find his little sister Lori and kill her friends. As you do. She survives but is heavily traumatized by the events of the night. For more, turn to chapter 13. Chapter 13, Halloween II, came out in 2009 and takes place in either 2008 or 2009, depending on which cut you view. So, 1 to 2 years later, a traumatized Lori is living with Sheriff Lee Brackett and his daughter Annie, who survived being attacked by Michael in the previous chapter. Yay! Lori learns through Dr. Loomis' exploitative book that she's actually the sister of Michael, and she really freaks out, really freaks out. The whole movie is just her freaking the fuck out. Michael kills some people, he walks around, he sees the ghost of his mother. Typical Michael Myers stuff. In the end, Lori, who's 19, Michael, who's 29, and Dr. Loomis are all locked in a cabin or a shed, a little building together, and they're surrounded by police. And then depending on which cut you watch, Michael definitely dies. He definitely kills Loomis. And then Lori either survives or is institutionalized. Either way, Sheriff Lee Brackett, played by Brad Dourif, lives, and that's awesome. But thus concludes the remake timeline, and also the book. For now, see you in 2028.